The day before the college entrance exam, Blake agreed to go out and celebrate his coming of age with a girl he had only recently met at a bar, a rebellious little delinquent. For someone who claimed to value the exam above everything else, Blake's agreement was shocking. That afternoon in the restroom, I accidentally overheard that delinquent girl whispering to her friends, "Tonight, I'm going to make sure Blake keeps me company. Tomorrow he won't be going to the exam at all." In my previous life, when Blake told me about their plans, I had desperately tried to stop him. But all I got in return was his cold, mocking voice. "Melissa, Anika planned this for my 18th birthday. Just because you're too timid to celebrate with me doesn't mean you get to stop me from pursuing happiness." For his future, I endured the humiliation and secretly told his parents what I had overheard. That night, they locked him inside the house. The next morning, they personally dragged him to the exam hall. Blake ended up getting into Yale University just as he wished. But Anika, enraged that her plan had failed, got drunk. She was assaulted that same night. Unable to bear the trauma, she jumped from the 33rd floor and died instantly. When Blake heard the news, he completely snapped. He invited me to his house, acted unusually gentle, and intentionally left evidence behind. After I left, he called the police and accused me of having improper intentions. My future was ruined. My parents, driven to despair after being doxxed and attacked online, committed suicide by turning on the gas at home. Blake stood at our doorway, filming their final moments as they struggled for breath. He even brought the video to the prison to show me. "Melissa, I want your entire family buried with Anika. Traumatized beyond repair. My congenital heart disease acted up. I died in prison, collapsing on the cold floor. When I opened my eyes again, I was back on the day before the college entrance exam. Blake was next to me, rambling excitedly about the celebration that night. I looked at him and smiled. This time he could do whatever he wanted. Melissa, what's with your attitude? Do you have to freak out every time another girl talks to me?" That familiar voice jolted me back. I lowered my head. My wrists were free of shackles. In front of me, Blake pointed and scolded just as he used to. I had really been reborn. In my previous life, this was the day I stopped Blake from going out with Anika. He got into Yale. Yes, but Anika died after being assaulted while drunk. After receiving the news, Blake pretended to reconcile with me, lured me to his house, removed his clothes and filmed everything. Then he uploaded the video online and called the police, framing me for sexual assault. I was imprisoned. My parents hounded mercilessly online, turned on the gas and took their own lives. When they died, Blake was right outside the door. He filmed their suffering with cold eyes and left with a smile. The next day, he visited me in prison. He played the entire video in front of me and screamed hoarsely, "Melissa, if you hadn't stopped me, Anika wouldn't have died. My grades were always excellent. I would have gotten into Yale even if I'd gone out that night. You selfish witch. Anika died because of you. Your whole family deserves to be buried with her." He knew I had congenital heart disease. He knew exactly what that video would do to me. As the pain seized my heart, the last thing I saw was the smile lingering at the corner of his lips. The memory sent a freezing chill through me. My face grew pale. Just then, a mocking voice chimed beside us. "Oh, come on, Blake. You have to understand her. Melissa's just a top student. She's too scared to go out and party. It's normal for her to feel a little jealous that Anika gets to go with you." Blake's friend's voice dragged me back to reality. Blake looked at me and smirked with undisguised contempt. Then he patted his buddy on the shoulder, his tone full of pride. "Anika said she has prepared a huge surprise for my coming of age tonight. I'm really looking forward to it. Celebrating my 18th birthday with such a beautiful girl. I'm sure I'll perform even better on the exam tomorrow." I sneered inwardly. This morning I overheard Anika in the restroom talking to her friends. Tonight I'm spending the whole night with Blake. None of you better disturb us. He has the college entrance exam tomorrow. Don't play too crazy. Exam? Why would my man need to take an exam? If he becomes a college student, what use would he have for me anymore? It was because I heard that conversation that I had desperately tried to stop Blake. This wasn't a celebration. This was clearly a plan to ruin him. But Blake was too foolish to see it. Thinking of this, I lifted my head, met his smug expression and smiled. Go ahead, Blake. With someone as beautiful as Annika keeping you company tonight, I'm sure you'll perform exceptionally well tomorrow. He froze for a moment, surprised by my answer, but quickly grinned again, too excited about his upcoming date to question it. I thought about the exam tomorrow and bent down to pick up my bag, ready to leave. But just as I stood up, Blake's friend shoved me back into the chair. Blake's eyes turned cold as he swiftly snatched my phone and exam admission slip from my hands. Trying to leave? You're obviously going home to report me to my parents. Please stay with me. I'll keep them safe and give them back at the exam hall tomorrow. If you dare tell my parents, you can forget about taking the exam. I stared at him helplessly. Blake, you know how important this exam is to me. I promise I won't say anything to your parents, but please, don't play with my future. Whether he could take the exam tomorrow was one thing, but I absolutely could not leave my admission slip with him. Seeing that he had no intention of returning it, I lunged forward, grabbing hold of the admission slip still in his hand. My voice turned colder than it had ever been. Blake, give it back. His friends burst out laughing. Ooh, look, the top student is mad. Blake, you guessed right. She's totally going to run home and tattle on you. You can't give it back. Blake's grip, which had wavered for just a moment, tightened again under their jeers. Panic boiled inside me. My voice trembled with desperation. Blake, don't do this. You know how important this exam is to me. Seeing the tears collecting in my eyes, his grip loosened a little. The admission slip was just about to return to my fingers when, Blake, think of your date with Annika. Don't let her surprise get ruined. His friends' voices crashed over us. Blake's expression changed instantly. He yanked his arm back with sudden force. Rip. My admission slip tore cleanly in half. The boys who had been hyping him up moments before all paled. The tears I had been holding back finally spilled over, falling onto the floor with a soft patter. A suffocating wave of despair swallowed me whole, reborn into a new life, and yet, in the end, I still lost my future. Blake's face shifted from pale to flushed over and over. After a long moment, he suddenly flung the torn admission slip back at me. Melissa, you're the one who tried to stop me from going out with Annika. That's why I got so worked up. This is your own fault. With that, he grabbed his friend and bolted out of the classroom as if escaping a fire. The moment the door shut, I heard laughter erupt in the hallway. Blake, that top student Melissa is totally your lapdog. You tore her admission slip, and she didn't even dare complain. Yeah, she's such a timid little thing. Not at all like Annika. So bold and carefree. Their words stabbed into my heart like needles. My tolerance, my kindness. He actually mistook it for cowardice. Blake and I had worked side by side since middle school, pushing each other to grow. Getting into Yale together was the future we once promised each other. But ever since he met Annika outside of school, everything changed. Today's Blake clearly no longer wanted any shared future with me. Thinking of this, I tossed the torn admission slip into the trash bin and knocked on the homeroom teacher's office door. Teacher, about the guaranteed admission to Stanford. I've made up my mind. Stanford suits me better than Yale. My teacher beamed. Good, you should never have given it up. The physics lab at Stanford will let you shine. When I got home, my parents were relieved to hear I didn't need to take the exam after all. They had always worried when I insisted on giving up the secure Stanford recommendation for Blake's sake. Now at least, things turned out the way they had hoped. We had barely finished dinner, when a frantic knocking sounded at the door. When we opened it, standing there were Blake's parents, both pale with worry. Melissa, do you know where Blake went? He only sent us one message, then stopped answering our calls. The exam is tomorrow. Where could that child have gone? My mom turned to me too. Melissa, you two are usually together. Auntie, I don't know. I cut my mother off and looked directly at Blake's mother as I answered. Melissa, then do you know where he normally goes? I forced a stiff smile. Auntie, I really don't know. With no clues, Blake's mother could only shake her head helplessly and leave. The moment the door closed, my dad poked his head out of the room. Did you two have a fight? How could you not know where he'd go? I simply smiled and went back to my room. Of course, I wouldn't say a word. Let him enjoy his wonderful night with Annika. My mother was the head of the parents' committee, So early the next morning, she pulled my father and me along to the exam site to serve as volunteers. We had barely arrived when I saw Blake's parents rushing around anxiously. The moment they spotted me, they hurried over. My homeroom teacher was right behind them, breathless. "Melissa, Blake never returned home last night. Weren't you two together at school yesterday? Did he tell you where he was going?" My teacher added urgently, "Melissa, you know how important this exam is to him. The test is about to begin, and he's still nowhere to be found. Think carefully, where could he have gone?" Looking at Blake's frantic parents made something soften inside me for a moment. But the image of my own parents' horrific deaths from the previous life flashed violently in my mind, and my heart went completely cold. I clenched my teeth and lifted my head to meet their eyes. "I really don't know." My homeroom teacher let out a long sigh and patted Mrs. Jordan on the shoulder. Melissa is an honest child. Maybe she truly doesn't know. Let's think of another way to find him." But I knew they wouldn't find him. Annika never intended to let Blake take the college entrance exam. Right now he was probably unconscious on some hotel bed, completely unaware of what was happening to his life. Sure enough, even when the exam began, Blake never appeared. His parents were just ordinary working-class people. To help him focus on studying, his mother had quit her job to take care of him full-time. His father took 3 jobs alone, sleeping barely 3 hours a night. They had sacrificed more than 10 years for this one moment. And yet the obedient, sensible son they raised vanished right before the exam. The moment the testing gates locked, Mrs. Jordan completely broke down. She collapsed to the ground, wailing hysterically. "My son." Just before the first subject ended, Blake finally staggered into view at the gates. Face ashen, steps unsteady. Mrs. Jordan shot up from the ground, rushing toward him. Her hand swung across his face in a sharp, loud slap. "You little bastard, where in the world did you go?" I was resting in the shade with my parents, just about to stand up, when Blake suddenly spoke. "Mom, it was Melissa. Yesterday at school, she confessed to me. And when I rejected her, she held a grudge. She drugged me and dragged me to a hotel. I just woke up. She ruined my whole life." I froze. Before I could even react, Mr. and Mrs. Jordan were already charging toward us. Blake clearly hadn't expected me to be there. The moment he saw me, he quickly lowered his head. The memory of my parents' tragic deaths in my previous life flashed violently in my mind. Instinctively, I stepped in front of them. And that was when Mr. Jordan's fist slammed into my face. "You little animal. Just because he rejected you, you ruin his future? Do you know what our family sacrificed for this day?" I wanted to explain, but he was too far gone in rage. Before I could utter a word, he kicked me to the ground. That punch. It felt like he put his entire life strength into it. A sharp burst of pain shot through my nose. Warm blood poured down instantly, coating my eyes, nose and mouth in a sticky mess. My father saw me fall and rushed toward me, nearly crazed. But the moment he reached me, Mr. Jordan kicked him aside as well. Years of hard labor had given Mr. Jordan a terrifying strength. A pair of filthy father-daughter trash. "You ruined Blake's future. Don't you dare think you'll live comfortably after this." More and more parents gathered around. Many of them knew about Blake's academic performance. Hearing that he missed the exam because of my supposed revenge, their anger exploded. They surged forward all at once. Fists and kicks rained down on my father and me. When a child does wrong, the father is to blame. "Let's teach you two a lesson. So young and already causing trouble. You'll be a menace to society when you grow up." Mr. Jordan hit them. "If anything happens, we'll testify for you." Through the haze of pain, I forced my eyes open, searching the crowd. There, behind everyone, was Blake. His face, moments ago twisted in false misery, now carried a faint triumphant smile. The last lingering thread of hope I had for Blake snapped completely. At last, I was fully awake. The boy standing before me was no longer the Blake who used to chase after me day and night, begging me to explain exam questions. Since he wasn't that person anymore, there was no reason to spare him any dignity. Using the last of my strength, I fumbled through my bag, pulled out my phone, found the video Annika sent me last night, and pressed play, turning the volume up to a maximum. A girl's laughter burst from the speaker. "Annika, are you serious? You really drugged him that hard?" Then came Annika's smug voice, lazy and amused. Obviously. That idiot Blake still thinks I'm celebrating his birthday. By now he's probably unconscious already. The crowd around us froze. Mr. Jordan's raised fist stopped midair. I wiped the blood from my mouth and forced myself upright, my voice hoarse but clear. You said I ruined his future? I stared directly at Blake. Then explain this. The recording continued. Tomorrow's college entrance exam is the biggest day of his life. So what? Annika scoffed. If he gets into Yale, he'll dump me sooner or later. Men like him only like girls like me for fun. Once he becomes successful, he'll go crawling back to that top student Melissa. Her friends burst into laughter. So you're destroying his future first? Duh. If he can't go to college, he'll have no choice but to stick with me. The entire exam entrance fell silent. Blake's face turned white. His lips trembled violently. No. I laughed coldly. You accused me of drugging you? I raised my bloodied phone higher. Then should we call the police right now and ask them to test your system? Mrs. Jordan staggered backward as if struck by lightning. Her gaze slowly turned from me to her son. Blake. Her voice cracked apart. You lied to us? Blake panicked instantly. Mom, slap. This time it was Mrs. Jordan who hit him. The sound was even louder than before. You little monster, she screamed hysterically. Melissa tried to save you yesterday, didn't she? Blake froze. That tiny flicker of guilt on his face told everyone the answer. The surrounding parents exploded. So the girl was innocent? They beat her and her father for nothing? That boy framed her to save himself. Mr. Jordan stared at his own fists in horror. My father was still on the ground, clutching his stomach in pain. Seeing him like that ignited something vicious inside me. I stepped toward Blake slowly. He instinctively backed away. For the first time since my rebirth, fear finally appeared on his face. Melissa, listen to me. No, I interrupted softly. You listen. I looked him straight in the eye. In your mind, was it always easier to sacrifice me? Blake's breathing grew ragged. I panicked. You panicked. I laughed. So you pointed everyone at me to protect yourself? His friends who had encouraged him yesterday were already quietly retreating through the crowd, terrified of getting dragged into the situation. But I wasn't done. I opened another video. This one showed Blake himself from the previous evening, drunk and grinning at the hotel camera, while Annika wrapped herself around his neck. Melissa is such a boring control freak, he slurred. Annika understands me way better. Then his voice grew colder. If Melissa dares ruin tonight, I'll make sure she regrets it. The crowd looked at him with complete disgust now. A teacher nearby finally reacted and shouted angrily, "Call the police!" Blake's body shook violently. No. Wait. I can still take the next exam subjects. I can still. You missed the first subject already, the homeroom teacher said coldly. Your total score is ruined. That sentence crushed him more thoroughly than anything else. His knees buckled. He collapsed directly onto the pavement. Mrs. Jordan burst into tears. More than 10 years. Her husband's health destroyed from overwork. Her own career abandoned. Their entire family had revolved around Blake's future, and he had personally thrown it away for one reckless night. Not because of me, because of himself. The police arrived quickly after several parents reported the incident. Annika was found unconscious in the hotel before noon. Drugs were recovered from the room. Under questioning, she admitted everything almost immediately, including how Blake had willingly gone with her despite knowing the exam was the next day. The scandal spread through the entire city before sunset. The top student who missed the national exam for a hotel hookup became the laughingstock of every school forum online. Meanwhile, my torn admission slip no longer mattered, because Stanford's guaranteed admission letter had already been finalized. 3 days later, when the official acceptance documents arrived at my house, my mother cried while holding me. My father quietly turned away to wipe his eyes. That night, for the first time in 2 lifetimes, I slept peacefully. But Blake didn't stop. After the scandal exploded, he began sending me hundreds of messages. At first, they were excuses. Melissa, I was scared. I didn't mean for them to hit you. I know I was wrong. Then they became accusations again. If you had warned my parents like last time, none of this would have happened. And finally, desperation. Please help me. I can't lose Yale. You know I only trusted you. I stared at the messages for a long time before replying with only one sentence. Blake, the person who ruined your future was never me. It was the version of yourself willing to destroy others to protect your pride. After sending it, I blocked him everywhere. A month later, I heard the final outcome. Because of the drug investigation and the public disturbance at the exam site, Blake became infamous across multiple universities. His interview recommendations were revoked one after another. Annika disappeared from school entirely. Some said her parents transferred her away overnight. Others said she entered psychiatric treatment after the criminal case began. I didn't care enough to confirm. The day I left for California, the sky was bright blue. At the airport, my father carried my luggage while my mother fussed endlessly about whether I had packed enough medicine for my heart condition. As boarding began, I suddenly heard someone calling my name from far away. I turned. Blake stood beyond the security barrier. He looked nothing like the proud boy from before. His eyes were bloodshot. His clothes wrinkled. His entire body carried the defeated exhaustion of someone whose future had collapsed overnight. For a second, our eyes met across the crowded terminal. Then he smiled bitterly. Not triumphant. Not hateful. Just broken. Melissa, he called one last time, voice trembling. If I could do it over. I turned around before he could finish. Because in this life, I finally understood something. Some people don't deserve a second chance from you simply because life already gave them one. And this time I chose myself. 7 years later, the glass walls of the research laboratory reflected the golden sunset pouring across campus. Students hurried through the hallways carrying stacks of papers and laptops, whispering excitedly as they passed me. Professor Carter is terrifying during presentations. Yeah, but her recommendations basically guarantee you a future. I heard Stanford is nominating her team for an International Physics Award this year. I couldn't help smiling faintly as I signed the final approval form in my office. Back then, my homeroom teacher had been right. Stanford truly had been the place where I could shine. My research in quantum materials had exploded internationally during my doctoral years. At 25, I had already become one of the youngest lead researchers in the department. The old congenital heart condition that once threatened my life was also finally under control after surgery. For the first time, everything in my life belonged to me. Peace. Freedom. A future no one could steal away. My phone buzzed on the desk. It was my mother. Melissa, are you still working? Your father already burned dinner trying to help. I laughed softly. I'm leaving now. Good. And don't forget your interview airs tonight. After hanging up, I packed my bag and walked out into the evening air. The campus was beautiful at dusk. Students laughed beneath rows of trees glowing amber in the sunset. Somewhere nearby, music drifted from a dorm window. For a moment, I stood there quietly, letting the warmth settle into my chest. Then my eyes landed on a figure across the street. I stopped walking. A man stood beside the campus convenience store unloading boxes from a delivery truck. Thin. Exhausted. His back slightly hunched from years of labor. Even before he looked up, I recognized him instantly. Blake. Time had not been kind to him. The arrogant confidence he once carried so naturally was gone completely. The expensive dreams in his eyes had long since burned away, leaving only dull fatigue behind. Sweat soaked through his faded work uniform despite the cool evening breeze. One of the younger workers nearby cursed at him impatiently. Move faster, old man. We don't have all day. Blake lowered his head immediately. Sorry. That single word made something strange stir in me. Not satisfaction. Not anger. Just distance. As if I were looking at someone from another lifetime. He finally looked up while carrying another box. The moment he saw me, his entire body froze. The box slipped from his hands and crashed onto the pavement. For several seconds, neither of us spoke. Then he forced out a hoarse laugh. You're doing well. I glanced briefly at the Stanford ID badge hanging from my coat. I am. His eyes reddened slightly. Back in high school, Blake had once sworn that he would stand beside me at Yale, that we would become the kind of people everyone envied. Instead, life split us into completely different worlds. After missing the exam, Blake tried retaking it the following year, but the scandal followed him everywhere. His recommendation letters disappeared. His former teachers avoided him. His parents, crushed by debt and disappointment, could no longer support another year of private tutoring. Eventually he dropped out entirely. I heard he worked construction for a while. Then warehouse shifts. Then delivery jobs. Always exhausted. Always barely surviving. And Annika? She left him less than 2 months after the scandal. Apparently rebellious love became much less exciting once there was no prestigious future attached to him. Blake stared at me as if trying to say 1,000 things at once. Regret. Bitterness. Longing. Shame. Finally he lowered his head. I used to think you ruined my life. I said nothing. His fingers curled tightly at his sides. But after all these years, he laughed weakly, I realized I would have destroyed it anyway. Cars passed between us in the fading light. Then he looked at me carefully. You really hate me now, don't you? I thought about it seriously. About prison. About my parents dying in agony in my previous life. About the hatred that once consumed me completely. Then I shook my head. I don't hate you anymore. Because hatred required emotional attachment. And Blake Jordan had become someone emotionally insignificant to me a very long time ago. For some reason, my answer seemed to hurt him even more. His eyes trembled. Back then, he probably thought I would love him forever no matter what he did. Some people only understand value after they've destroyed it with their own hands. A car pulled up beside me. My colleague leaned out the window smiling. Professor Carter, your parents are already waiting at the restaurant. You coming? I nodded. Before getting in, I looked at Blake one final time. He stood beneath the flickering convenience store lights in his stained uniform while the sunset faded behind him. And suddenly I remembered the boy from middle school who used to run after me with physics homework in hand, grinning brightly as he begged for help. That boy was long gone. Maybe he had disappeared the moment Blake chose pride over integrity. Or maybe he had never truly existed at all. I got into the car. As we drove away, I saw him grow smaller and smaller in the rearview mirror. Still standing there alone. Still trapped in the ruins of the future he destroyed himself. And for the first time in both my lives, I never looked back again.